Okay, good afternoon. Welcome to NewsWire here on SportsGrid. I'm Craig Mish. What a huge night for one player in the NBA last night, and maybe a potential retirement for one of the greatest of all time. We'll break it all down for you here on the show as we review the NBA playoffs and also preview what is next. We have Kyle Soppe joining us here on the show to do just that. We'll also talk some Major League Baseball. In addition, Peter Apple will be with us from Just Baseball. Of course, the Just Baseball show exclusively airing here on SportsGrid later today. And then Dustin Gawker has a great podcast and dives into the prediction market space with us. So make sure you stay on the grid with us a little bit later in the show. We'll give you the latest on that. But we begin, as I mentioned, in the NBA last night. Arguably one of the best games we've seen from Donovan Mitchell over the course of his career. And last night was a big night to come through. 43 points, including a 39-point second half for Mitchell. 112-102. The Cavs do beat the Pistons as 3.5-point favorites. They end up winning by 10. So now the Cavs are 6-0 this home at home in the playoffs, and 0-5 on the road. It's been exactly that, a tale of two different locations and two different results for the Cleveland Cavaliers. But if it ain't broke, don't fix it. And certainly Mitchell isn't going to try to fix anything on his historic second half. Here he was postgame.
Airball the first layup. It's a shot short. Sometimes it's natural, right? But to James's point, not really trying to force it. I didn't really, do got in the paint, tried to find guys, right? Like wasn't really trying to get in there and force it. And then just doubling down on the defensive end, trying to, take whoever I'm guarding, take them out of the equation. I understand that I'm going to get looks and it's going to fall at some point, even if they didn't, right? Just being aggressive, more aggressive. But I'm not sure we were down 4 at half, like, you know what I mean? So understanding that, I always tell y'all it's not just about the scoring. It's about your overall impact on the game. And for me, it was just like, okay, now I have an opportunity to try to get downhill and start going in.
It's unacceptable. It is. We didn't do enough, obviously, to help ourselves, and I'll start there. But ever since we came to Cleveland, the whistle has changed. There's no way that one guy on their team shoots more free throws than our team. We're not a settle team. We're not a jump shooting team. We drive the ball, attack the paint. So what was done out there tonight, it's frustrating. But we can't allow that to be the reason why, because we didn't play well enough and play to the best of our capabilities. But again, you look at the foul count, you look at the disparity, and that's hard to overcome. And you wonder, the reason why. It's interesting, since Kenny made his comments publicly about, us, the whistle's changed in this series.
And JB Bickerstaff looking for a win next game, says, help us out, refs, a little bit. That's all that's about right there. Okay, well, the odds makers certainly did know something last night. We questioned it yesterday here on the show, and there was a reason. The Lakers did cover last night, but they got swept by the Oklahoma City Thunder. That was the final. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander in a 115-110 victory for OKC. Also, Mitchell had 28, Chet Holmgren had 19 and 9. But the bigger story percolating out of this is whether or not last night's game was the final one for LeBron James. So we simply don't know at this point. So let's first hear from Shai Gilgeous-Alexander on his 35-point performance, and LeBron weighs in on his future.
We've done our job so far. That's all it really means. We've gone out there. We've executed, we played at a high level, and we've been able to win 8 tough games against really good opponents. That's all it really means. And nothing's guaranteed, but in the playoffs, no 2 games are the same, especially when you change opponents. So the challenges are all coming up, I guess you could say. But everything that we've done so far is behind us. We still haven't reached our goal. We have 2 more series to win to reach our ultimate goal. That's what we're focused on.
Well, I think you guys asked me about it, and I've answered questions. Yeah, I don't think I've come out and like, oh, retirement is coming. With my future, I don't know. Obviously, this is obviously we're still fresh from obviously losing, and I don't know. I don't know what the future holds for me. Obviously, as it stands right now tonight. I got a lot of time. I'll sit back, like I think I said it last year after we lost, I think, to Minnesota, to go back and recalibrate with my family and talk with them and spend some time with them. And then when the time comes, I obviously, you guys know what I decide to do.
All right, we'll see what LeBron ends up doing. More on him a little bit later in the show. By the way, tonight it's Game 5 between the Timberwolves and Spurs. We have a preview coming up a little bit later in the show as well. Okay, over to some Major League Baseball. Hottest team in the American League remains the Tampa Bay Rays. They win on the road again. 15th out of their last 17th. This is a road trip of success thus far for Tampa Bay before they head home this weekend. Drew Rasmussen picked up the win. He's been great. 6 innings pitched, 6 strikeouts. Also, Kevin Gausman reached 2,000 career strikeouts. He's one of 6 active players, but they ended up losing the game regardless. Chandler Simpson had 3 hits, but maybe had a cramp in that game as well. Yankees going through it for the first time this season. They've now lost 4 games in a row. Orioles beat the Yankees 3-2 and come back and win. Ryan Weathers had a no-hitter into the 7th inning, but in the 7th, it was Colby Mayo who hit a 3-run home run to give the Orioles a lead for good. Here's manager Craig Albernaz on that big shot.
Colby works hard. He cares a lot, and for him to come through right there was huge. For him, for us. It's a late scratch ambush for him, but all of our guys, but to his credit, prepared. He was ready, prepared. And that's a tough matchup. That lefty, he has some reverse split numbers. The slider's real. It's a real tough matchup. He did a great job of getting that slider up and then putting a good swing on it.
As we mentioned yesterday, when the Giants and Dodgers match up, you could kind of throw away the records. This is an intense rivalry. How about this Trevor McDonald, who's joined the rotation for the Giants? He helps in the win 9-3. San Francisco picks up the victory. Maybe the bigger story for the Giants, though, is the fact that Rafael Devers has now homered 3 times this week, 2 for 3, and seems to be getting back on track. Here's manager Tony Vitello on the offense, which was much needed.
And then the other thing about the at-bats offensively, it seemed to be a lot of guys grinding out at-bats, even prior to that last inning, grinding out at-bats and trying to find whatever way to get a job done. Even when it wasn't successful, you could see the intent, like Jung-Hoo's ground ball to first base was sharply hit. It was just right at a good first baseman. Overall, the at-bats were really good, and Rafi kind of led the way.
Been a tough start for Vitello. Tough couple days, by the way, for the manager of the Cleveland Guardians. Stephen Vogt has missed the last 2 days with a viral infection, so they've got a fill-in, their bench coach and acting manager, Tony Arnerick. He got his first win, filling in for Vogt. It was Joey Cantillo, who threw 6 innings and picked up the victory. Also, Travis Bazzana, the young rookie, got a win as well. Here's Arnerick on getting his first win as manager.
First career win, and beer shower to boot. Just what did that moment mean for you?
It's pretty cool. You think about growing up playing in the big leagues, and I guess it's the next best thing is if you can coach in the big leagues and just have the opportunity to manage. Obviously, Voter being sick isn't ideal, but at the end of the day, the players go play, and you sit there and you watch the game, and there's some decisions to be made. But to be able to do that is cool for me and my family, and we're a big baseball family. And my grandpa, growing up, always told me about Joe Sewell, who's a Cleveland legend, and how much he didn't strike out, and he would remind us how much big leaguers strike out now. So you get brought up in this game, and I'd like to think my family, my dad and my grandpa taught me about the history of the game. So to be able to have a night in the dugout where I'm the manager and get a W, yeah, it's pretty cool.
Hopefully Vogt will be okay moving forward. Meanwhile, the Colorado Avalanche go to Minnesota and take a commanding lead in their best of 7. They beat the Wild 3-1. The Canadiens will play the Sabres, and they lead 2-1 in the series. And the Golden Knights and Ducks square off in Game 5 tonight at 9:30 Eastern. All right, Kyle Soppy's on deck. We'll get to some NBA when we return next. You're watching NewsWire here on SportsGrid. Don't go away. Yeah, welcome back to NewsWire here on SportsGrid. Kyle Soppe enjoying the results in the NBA last night. He's with us to review some of them and look ahead as well. Kyle, thank you for coming on the show. Hey, pretty simple recipe here for the Cleveland Cavaliers. They win all their games, and Donovan Mitchell has a big game, and then that gives them a shot to stay in games. But, man, I mean, it feels like this series is very similar in a way to the Toronto series, Kyle. Like, somehow for Cleveland to win, they're going to have to do some damage here on the road. I don't think they will. I don't think it's going to happen. But I mean, I suppose what they're waiting for, Kyle, I mean, maybe I'm wrong here. It seems like Cleveland's going to have to wait for Detroit to have a major hiccup at home to win the series. Like, that's basically it. If Detroit just plays their basketball at home, it's going 7 and Detroit wins.
Yeah, I tend to agree that you need Detroit to lose this series more than Cleveland can win it. Last night's results shouldn't really surprise anybody. This is what Cleveland's been. Toronto, obviously a lesser version of Detroit, but they're similar teams, and they just can't win on the road, and right now they can't be stopped at home. Personally, I think they're more likely to lose at home than they are to win on the road at this point. I've got no problem playing the Pistons moving forward here. They won 3 out of 4 quarters. I get that Donovan Mitchell did his thing, 39 points in the second half. They had that huge third quarter, but Detroit wins 3 out of 4 quarters on the road where their guys couldn't really get going, and they opened up this Karis LeVert thing. I would be encouraged. Obviously, you don't want to lose a game like that and even the series,
Right.
but I'm encouraged if you're backing Detroit.
Yeah, and they're going to play tomorrow night, as the NBA series are now basically every other night now. We're not waiting 3 and 4 days.
About the Knicks being somewhat inevitable. Maybe not. I don't want to put words in their mouth, but I'll lay down the gauntlet here on, streaming radio, Twitter machine, whatever. I will book their bets right now. If they want to put the Knicks into the finals, I'll take the field. I want 350. I'll give them minus 150. I'm here for it. I don't think the Knicks want the Pistons to advance. I love that matchup. Should Detroit get there? And like you said, Detroit's not losing at home, so that means they advance in 6 or 7 games here. Give me Detroit here, and I want 350 from those bozos to get to the finals for the Pistons.
I mean, if you think about it, Detroit a couple of months ago, look at these odds. These were completely flipped. And really nothing much has changed outside of the Knicks putting up 150 points a game. But the Knicks are now minus 185. Detroit is plus 310. And it's the same teams. It's the same matchups. But the Knicks are the hottest. Look, there's no doubt the Knicks are the hottest team going right now in the NBA. But usually water finds the level. And I don't think the Knicks are putting up 150 on Detroit. I don't anticipate that.
No, there's too much size on Detroit to deal with that backcourt. Brunson's going to have problems, and Karl Anthony Towns right now functioning as Nikola Jokic on the East Coast. That's great. I don't see it sustaining. I don't think he's that kind of player. It was great for the last series. They're punching above their weight right now, and we get an opportunity to buy in. I'll buy in now because I think Detroit closes out Cleveland in 6 or 7 games. So I want those guys to give me a better number than that. I'll give them a better number than the books are giving. It's a nice little, I scratch your back, you scratch mine. We get some good odds. We get some good action going on the run there.
All right, we'll check in with the bozos a little bit later, as Kyle said. His words, not mine, by the way. Okay, so odds makers last night had the right number here, figuring the Lakers would just throw everything at the Thunder, and they did, and they played much better, but certainly they didn't cover. So now OKC's 8-0 in the postseason. And I think they have 2 games where they didn't cover out of the 8. So that's 6-2, which is crazy. SGA had 35 points. LeBron had 24. So first, let's do OKC, who, the thing, Kyle, for them, on top of all the success that they have, they're not going to play for like a week and a half now. So they're going to have so much rest going into the next round. It's going to be tough to beat them.
I don't know how you get 1 from them, let alone 4 in 2 weeks. Like, they're minus 175 to win the title right now. And I can't make an argument against it. I hate laying a price like that on a championship odd where you have to win 2 series, and they've got, potentially Wembanyama and San Antonio up next, and then whoever comes out of the East. I think it's Detroit, other people New York, some people Cleveland, Who knows? But none of these teams hold a candle to them. They could win. Sure, we're trying to find ways for them to win a game here and there or cover a spread. That's not winning 4 out of 7, Greg. That's just not. Anything can happen in professional sports. I'd still lay the minus 175. This team is the best team, and it ain't close.
Yeah, would agree. Okay, so now let's get to the Lakers real quick, where they have a big decision to make. And hey, they had a really good season. And if you consider not having Luka for the last couple of rounds, I mean, LeBron did everything he could. Austin Reeves came up big last night, but it wasn't enough. I mean, Kyle, this is one of those things where we're going to do this every year until I think we see LeBron with a major fall off. Why would LeBron not play next year? I mean, it seems to me that a guy like this, I mean, you know what I could see is I could see for the first time him saying next year's my last year. That I could see, but I think he's coming back.
Yeah, no, I would agree. It seems like a matter of where, not if, for LeBron next season. And I do think he's back, whether it's in Cleveland maybe for another homecoming part 2 there. I don't know exactly where he's going to go. Like you said, he's 41 years old. We beat that into the ground, but the dude's playing at a high level. If LA wants him back and they still have this big 3 fully intact, they could do some damage. But if I were him, I'd want to move to the East Coast because I don't want to play Oklahoma City until the finals. It really is that simple.
Yeah, no, it was tough. And if they play anybody else, they're probably still in it. Okay, real quick, let's check in on tonight's game, Timberwolves and Spurs. And the series is tied at 2. Yesterday was announced that Victor Wembanyama will not face any further discipline. So you got to make them a favorite tonight. But what about this big line, 10.5?
I'll take the 10.5. Minnesota is just too grind-oriented. They're bringing this in. They're going to keep this game close, whether they get to the finish line or not. De'Aaron Fox battling an ankle injury. That's huge. I'm on his under assist for that exact reason. He hasn't led this team in potential assists in a single game this series. That's concerning to me. And if you want a gross prop of the day, Rudy Gobert under 1.5 assists. It's not going to take much to go over that number, but I'm under it. Plus money all over the place here. It's gotten juiced up a little bit to 2.5. Give me under 1.5 assists for Rudy Gobert. The paint touches are way down. Open 3 rate way down when Wemby's on the floor for San Antonio. He's not there to touch the ball. He's there to do a million things, not pass. Under 1.5 assists for the grossest prop you'll play this postseason.
All right, let's do this. We'll keep Kyle around, and we'll come back next and take a look at today's baseball slate. You're watching NewsWire on SportsGrid. We'll be right back after these messages.
Over the summer where there's drastic changes and gas drops down to $3 a gallon, $2.50 a gallon in some states, and then you have some of the price markets go down. You ride that momentum is what Joe's talking about. So if you say right now, which party will win the U.S. House, and you think it's the Republicans currently trading at 20%, you take them now, and if good press comes, that turns into 25% and 30%, then you have the option to cash out.
Prediction Markets Edge, only on SportsGrid.
There is a pick tonight that Gabe has that, to some degree, I find completely outrageous. Then I looked at it a second longer, and it might be a really smart angle.
I like to test them a little bit.
I like
to test them a little bit.
I like that a lot.
Oh, yeah, you don't know? You don't know this team name? You should. You're in the sports business.
Game time decisions, only on SportsGrid.
Number one, who asked for this? Nobody, but nobody asked for a bump up in the number of teams in both the men and the women's basketball tournament from 68, including the 4 play-in teams, to 76. And by the way, it looks like it is a near-done deal. ESPN and ABC News reported this morning that's very close to being done. It could be announced by the end of this week.
NewsWire, only on SportsGrid.
Class is in session. Today, let's talk about the teaser. A teaser is a multi-leg bet where you shift the point spread in your favor. You get better numbers, but every selection has to win. It doesn't matter what you bet if you don't have the insights. Tune into SportsGrid and get ahead of the class.
And welcome back to NewsWire. Kyle Soppe is with us to break down tonight's Major League Baseball slate. We'll see if Kyle likes anything in particular tonight. He's usually very selective when it comes to some of this stuff. All right, Kyle, well, let's start with the hottest team in baseball. And, you know, there's something I always say on the show, let the trend be your friend. How can you possibly go against Tampa Bay at this point. I mean, they're as hot as any team in the American League, and not just their starting pitching, Kyle, but it seems like the second they have a lead, that bullpen comes in and just shuts everybody down. That was the case yesterday again. The Rays are at Toronto tonight again. The total is 8, and it's basically a pick-'em game. So, I mean, what's not to sell here? I still don't understand. The odds makers have not really adjusted the success with the Rays.
No, and I'm usually not a big streak guy, but you got to ride the gravy train here. And the trend friend thing, I like that. A nice rhyme that never hurt anybody. But do we really think this streak's coming to an end at the hands of Patrick Corbin? Patrick Corbin, the same guy who's got like an ERA north of 5 since the pandemic. Not since last year, not over the last 6 months, since the pandemic. That feels like it was forever ago. This isn't the guy that ends this kind of streak. Shane McClanahan on the other side, his advanced metrics, everything lines up with what he's doing. 2 through 6 hitters are hitting under 150 against him this season. I don't know how you get off the Rays in this spot. Are they going to lose 4 out of 6 games at some point? It might even happen in May. It's not starting tonight. I'm backing them, making 16 out of 18 for the Rays.
So if that's the hot team in the American League, here's the hot team in the National League. It's the Chicago Cubs. They finally did lose a game. And what a matchup tonight against the Braves. Holmes against Colin Ray. That will be the starters tonight. As you can see, the Braves light favorites because it's hard to get in the way of the Cubs tonight. And I see this total at 8.5 also, which tells me we could be in for some runs.
We definitely could. I'm on the over in a light kind of way. I don't feel great about it, but the Chicago offense is there. Atlanta, we know they're going to be aggressive, and both these pitchers are fine, but neither strikes me as a guy that's going 7 shutout innings. So both give up a couple runs. It's tied 3-3. You know, in the 5th, 6th, 7th inning, we get a run or 2 and a big swing. I'll go over 8.5 with a very light play on Cubs Braves tonight.
Brewers are playing better. They take on the Padres tonight. The knuckleballer Matt Waldron will pitch. I don't think he's starting from what I'm reading here, as the Padres usually throw an opener before Waldron to kind of show them some velocity and then show the knuckleball. Brandon Sproat will start tonight for the Brewers, basically even across the board, minus 126 plus 108. That'll be minus by the time they throw out first pitch. Total 8.5 tonight. 2 teams playing well.
They are, and you mentioned the knuckleballer, and that's what's got me on the under 1.5 runs through the first 3 innings here. Maybe he gets batted around late or late-ish, whatever you call late in today's baseball, but not early. An opener is going to come in. He's got the scouting report to nail down the first 3 hitters, 4 hitters, whatever. Then you bring in the knuckleballer, and that's a whole different adjustment curve. Under 1.5 runs in the first 3 innings, to me, looks good in this spot. Understanding that runs could come late, but I think it's a slow starting game given the pitching on both sides here.
Some good pitching tonight as we close it out in Texas this evening. They lost Nate Eovaldi, it feels like, maybe for a period of time again, unfortunately. But the Rangers will tonight have Mackenzie Gore pitching this evening, and Zach Gallen will go for the Diamondbacks. Neither pitcher having a particularly great start to their season, but the Diamondbacks at least have played a little bit better than the Rangers have. I guess this is a tough one for me to call.
Yeah, I'll take the home team here in the first 5 innings, and I'll lay the half a run. Mackenzie Gore, you mentioned it. He has had his struggles, but his struggles have been with command. Arizona chases the ball all over the place, and he doesn't give up home runs. He hasn't allowed a home run in 6 out of 8 starts. So if Arizona's letting him get ahead in these counts, that terrifies me. He's fallen apart later in games in his 3rd trip through the lineup. So you're talking late 5th inning, early 6th, or even into the 7th. So I'm going to back the Rangers minus half a run in the first 5 innings here, thinking that they get to Gallen for 2, 3, maybe 4 runs early. He's struggled. You mentioned that, the career high barrel rate. All of that concerns me with him. 1 big swing, I think, is all we need here to get Mackenzie Gore home through the first 5 innings.
Okay, and finally, Kyle, we've got 2 teams that have underperformed thus far. The Phillies seem to be finding their way, though, a little bit, and they'll have Zach Wheeler tonight. The Red Sox have not named a starter. Phillies are going to be favored without a doubt. Total of 8.5. Tough matchup, I think, for Boston here.
Yeah, I tend to agree. Zach Wheeler, and you mentioned the Phillies coming along. 146 is at a bad price. You can get Zach Wheeler to earn the win at plus 116 right now on DraftKings. That's where I'm kind of looking in addition to the outright money line. If they're going to win this game, it's going to be on the back of Wheeler. I think they can close it down. And like you said, no projected starter on the other side. I think they get up early and coast to do a nice little finish here for the Phillies.
All right, Kyle, enjoy all the games tonight. We'll catch up again soon. Thanks again.
Sounds good. Thanks for having me.
All right, up next, baseball in full swing. Peter Apple of Just Baseball is going to join us next to break down some of the odds in the National League East. So we'll focus on the Padres as well. Don't go away.
Over the summer where there's drastic changes and gas drops down to $3 a gallon, $2.50 a gallon in some states, and then you have some of the price markets go down. You ride that momentum is what Joe's talking about. So if you say right now, which party will win the U.S. House, and you think it's the Republicans currently trading at 20%, you take them now, and if good press comes, that turns into 25% and 30%, then you have the option to cash out.
Prediction Markets Edge, only on SportsGrid.
There is a pick tonight that Gabe has that, to some degree, I find completely outrageous. Then I looked at it a second longer, and it might be a really smart angle.
I like to test them a little bit.
I like
to test them a little bit.
I like that a lot.
Oh, okay, you don't know? You don't know this team name? You should. You're in the sports business.
Game time decisions, only on SportsGrid.
Number one, who asked for this? Nobody, but nobody asked for a bump up in the number of teams in both the men and the women's basketball tournament from 68, including the 4 play-in teams, to 76. And by the way, it looks like it is a near-done deal. ESPN and ABC News reported this morning that it's very close to being done. It could be announced by the end of this week.
NewsWire, only on SportsGrid.
Class is in session. Today, let's talk about the teaser. A teaser is a multi-leg bet where you shift the point spread in your favor. You get better numbers, but every selection has to win. It doesn't matter what you bet if you don't have the insights. Tune into SportsGrid and get ahead of the class.
Peter Apple is with us from Just Baseball. You can catch their show coming up shortly here on SportsGrid. But before we get to his show, let's get a little preview and also talk some National League Baseball to start. Peter, it's great to catch up with you once again. Appreciate it. Let's take a current look, Peter, if you don't mind, at the National League odds, the odds to win the pennant in the NL, where really nothing has changed. The Dodgers essentially opened up to win the NL as slight minus money, big favorites, okay? But slight minus money, and now it's plus 100 if you're feeling frisky. But beyond that, the big shift in the NL, as you can see, is the Cubs are now 7-1. So they have moved into a much higher position. Philadelphia has fallen back. Milwaukee has moved up a little bit based off their week last week. So, you know, let's say since the beginning of the season, not a ton of shifting. Philadelphia, of course, with the tough start. The one team that we don't talk about and we don't see there, obviously, with the biggest fall, are the New York Mets. But beyond that, this pretty much is par for the course as the season opened.
Absolutely. And it's hard not to be extremely, and I mean extremely impressed with the Atlanta Braves. And it's not just because, you know, that they have baseball's best record or that they just took 2 out of 3 from the Dodgers in LA, is because this is not the final form of the Atlanta Braves. Ronald Acuna just got hurt again. Austin Riley hasn't even gotten going yet offensively, and they're still missing Spencer Schwellenbach, Hurston Waldrop, AJ Smith-Shawver, and they just got back their closer in Raisel Iglesias. So this is not the full form Braves, and we're already seeing what the 70% of Atlanta could look like. And we also have to remember, this Atlanta Braves team going into last season had a win total near 100 games, right? So the Vegas odds, the books, already assumed that this team could go toe-to-toe with the Dodgers, but then they just had one of the most unlucky injured seasons that a team has had in a really long time. But now you see what the books were already pricing in from last year, and you're seeing it develop even more. And with Spencer Strider looking as good as he currently does, this Braves team, I think, should be priced closer to the Dodgers. And it's not just recency bias where I'm looking at exactly what they've done so far. It's projecting forward, knowing that this team is going to get even better. And that's not even pricing in anything that they'll do at the deadline, because Alex Anthopoulos has money at his disposal. He can go make more moves.
Yeah, and Peter, we saw that. And Anthopoulos, when the Braves are in it, are always very aggressive. I mean, that's what got them a World Series, I think, by adding Adam Duvall and some other and Soler, who was the MVP of the World Series back in 2021. Okay, meanwhile, all the talk about the Padres is pretty positive. They've held water a little bit here, as you would say, in April and May. They look like a pretty good team. I know they came back on Mother's Day. That was a very big win for them. Their win total is a little bit higher than what it started off at the beginning of the season. And, all the buzz in San Diego, unfortunately, a little bit. I mean, not all the buzz, Peter, has been on the negative side because Tatis naturally has not homered. And we're on that watch now every single day. When is he going to homer? But it is a tougher team to sort of figure out because they don't have... Dylan Cease is gone, and they're throwing Waldron, who I love the knuckleball, but they don't have a ton like they used to in the past heading into this part of the season. And with this new ownership coming, I'm not sure what the future really holds for them.
Yeah, it's a really tough team to evaluate, and we were just discussing them on our show on the weekend roundup. And I came on this show and I gave you guys a bunch of MLB futures. I told you took the Cardinals over, the Pirates over, the Rockies over. What else did I tell you to take? I also told you to take the Astros under, but I also told you to take the Padres under 85.5 wins and Padres to miss the playoffs. And funny enough, the preseason lines I took were under 85.5 and Padres to miss the playoffs at plus 130. And that's about the odds that we still see here today. And I think the biggest reason that the books are not moving off their preseason predictions for the Padres is this start has been, for lack of a better term, weird, right? They have a +3 run differential, and yet they're 8 games above 500. They have some of the quote-unquote luckiest wins of the season. Now, Padres fans don't like to call it lucky, but when I see come-from-behind wins after that team had only put up 1 or 2 runs during the game, and they have one great inning, and then, of course, Mason Miller, maybe the greatest ninth-inning pitcher we've ever seen in our entire lives, comes in, yes, the game is over, right? They've done well in one-run games, but I still look at the skeleton and the meat of this team, and I just still don't like what I see, right? We've seen Fernando Tatis Jr. get off to a rough start, and for him, it seems more swing-related. Could he make an adjustment? Of course, but it's hard to in the middle of the season, and Manny Machado just doesn't look quite like the same. Jackson Merrill, right? He did not have a great season last year. Now, it was, there's a myriad of injuries, but at the same time, he hasn't proven a ton for us to put him on some upper end echelon when he has yet to prove it. And then you look at the rotation and it feels like it's being held together by strings. Now the bullpen is out of this world. It is one of the best bullpens, probably the best bullpen I've seen since those 2015 Royals with Wade Davis and Greg Holland, and you could go down the list. It's in an unbelievable bullpen. But as we know, the more you use the bullpen over the season, those arms are going to get tired. So when these games are tight, that the Padres are winning every single one of them, all it takes is one bullpen arm to be tired and not have his best day. And then they'll start going on losing streaks. So basically, I'm going to stick with my preseason take. I don't think the Padres are a playoff team, and I think they go under 85.5 wins.
Yeah, very, very well said there. And that's an excellent point, is that, and in those Royals seasons, those bullpen arms didn't get, really abused until the end of the year was when we really saw them in the postseason. So that's a fair point. We'll see how the Padres end up doing, but yeah, run differential, a pretty good indicator that +3 is not something that's sustainable to have this kind of record. Okay, so a trade that was made and everyone wants to know why. Like, this was a trade where it's like anytime a trade is made in May, it's the only trade usually, and that's going to be probably the only trade of the month of May too. A significant kind. Patrick Bailey, who was a great Gold Glove Award winner with San Francisco, they called up this kid Rodriguez, and I know they want to play him, but naturally because Bailey was there, it's the Giants, and Buster Posey was a catcher. That's where the conversation starts to begin. So, Peter, how do you assess this? And certainly it feels more like San Francisco was shopping Bailey as opposed to Cleveland being interested in him.
Absolutely. And I think the way to assess this deal is which team values defense from their catching position the most. because a lot of teams, they have different opinions on it, right? We've seen the Tampa Bay Rays, right, as one of the best teams in baseball. It's hard to name who's currently catching for the Tampa Bay Rays right now.
I don't even know.
They've never really had much of a catching situation. And now other teams, right, they might go for the big bat behind the plate, but they say, you know what, defense isn't quite as important. The Yankees, right, they continue to put out Austin Wells because of his defense. Nobody values defense more than the Cleveland Guardians behind the dish, right? That's why Austin Hedges continues to be in the lineup. And that's why, even though Bo Naylor has shown some potential offensively, the defense wasn't there, so they decided to move on. And the Giants got a good package, but if you are Cleveland, you are jumping for joy because Patrick Bailey, right after Pete Crow Armstrong and Bobby Witt Jr., I would say is the third best defensive player in the entire sport. And if he could just be 30% below league average offensively, you got a 3 to 4 win catcher for a 29th overall pick who the Guardians can draft from wherever and get value. And then Tugboat Wilkinson, who the Guardians kind of already have copy and paste version in Parker Messick. So I think both teams did well here.
Yeah, no, it's interesting. Do you think, by the way, everybody doubling down and tripling down on the Giants' disastrous season, and I know Devers is finally starting to hit here a little bit, Peter, but I mean, they literally just hired a new president of baseball operations. So, I don't see any significant changes coming there. But with this dynamic of Posey, and Posey wants to bring in established players. I mean, that's who he is. He's not looking at driveline, right? Where are the Giants headed in the future?
Not anywhere good. Unfortunately, they have a lot of big contracts, most notably the Devers contract, the Matt Chapman contract, the Willie Adames contract. I mean, you could keep going down the line. They might be forced to trade Robbie Ray away just because they have to, not because they want to. And it's not a great farm system at all. It's tough right now in San Francisco. There's no doubt about it.
Yeah, third best team in the division at best. That's not including Arizona. I think Arizona may be better than them, and certainly they've been well run through the years too. All right, Peter, we'll catch Just Baseball later today. Thanks again. Welcome back to NewsWire here on SportsGrid. Dustin Gawker is with us. He's got a great podcast and also the Closing Line where he writes about everything prediction markets and such. And great to have Dustin back here on the show. Dustin, Thanks for coming on the program here. So, this is actually a learning tool for me because I didn't know that DraftKings didn't have their own proprietary, I guess, operation as far as their prediction market business is concerned. I simply thought when they launched their app and they launched their prediction markets as they were doing their own thing. So my understanding, learning from you here, is that they've been using markets offered by other other exchanges. So tell me why that happened and why they've decided to use their own exchange, because simply put, wouldn't it cost them more money to use this information?
There's a lot behind this. Yeah, we just had DraftKings and also we'll talk about FanDuel, I think, do their Q1 earnings call. And we learned a lot about their prediction markets business. Of course, they've both in the last couple months have launched prediction markets themselves that are separate from their sports books. But yeah, DraftKings has been using a combination of CME Group, which is a traditional commodities exchange. It also has a prediction market operation. It also has worked with Crypto.com to surface markets. So when you look at DraftKings and the prediction markets product, you're actually looking at those markets. It's being presented through DraftKings, but it's not. So now last year they have bought something called Railbird, which allows them to offer their own exchange, exactly like Kalshi does or Polymarket does, where they own the exchange and they can offer their own markets and control the whole thing themselves. Yes, that costs them money to do that, but it gives them way more control of the plumbing and how all of this works. It actually increases the amount of revenue they should be able to generate from all of this. Right now, they are a pass-through for other markets. And they're just making a little bit of money. Now they're going to be able to generate more money in terms of fees and trading. So this should be a net positive for DraftKings when they get all of this. And I think the goal for them they're going to be live here, they said, before the end of the quarter, I believe, and certainly before football season.
Okay, let's now move over to FanDuel. I noticed their CEO was let go, Dustin, and certainly it's hard to make progress as a company when no other sports betting states are legalizing sports betting, and you're having to, sort of go up against prediction markets as well. Maybe that has actually nothing to do with it. I'll lean on you for this. Why did FanDuel make that change?
Yeah, we had Amy Howe leave as CEO of the FanDuel business. FanDuel is a part of the larger gambling company called Flutter that's based in Europe, but FanDuel is a big part of what that is. And FanDuel's had some challenging results, and things have changed, obviously, with prediction markets. I think there's probably a desire to, push the envelope a little more than FanDuel has so far in all of this. And FanDuel right now, I'd say, is probably trailing DraftKings as the sports books and other entities look to get into prediction markets and really scale that business. Because we listen to Q1 earnings for both companies, and it's pretty clear. I think DraftKings is ahead of FanDuel right now. So this is, some of the challenging results on sports. It's some of, I think, looking to the future of what FanDuel will be in its sports brands and prediction markets. So, but yeah, FanDuel, just like DraftKings, is going to deploy a lot of capital into all of this. Both of them are forecasting a lot of spend heading into football season to scale that prediction markets product. So, it's going to be all hands on deck. We're going to see this giant marketing push, I think, in the late summer, early fall, as the NFL and college football get started.
Yep, a few months for that. Also, World Cup coming up in June. I would suspect a lot of folks going to be wagering on that. All right, prediction markets now. Let's get specifically to Kalshi here. Record numbers for them in March at $13 billion. What were the numbers in April?
Yeah, it grew again up to $14.8 billion in total trading volume. Again, I caution people that's not the exact same thing as sports betting handle that we talk about in the state-regulated sports books, but it's a meaningful number that captures how much people are trading. You and I, if we were going onto an app and trade, but also the market makers on the other side of this. So big number. When we were starting football season, we're talking like $3 to $4 billion a month, and now even with football season over and kind of the sports calendar turning to spring and summer, when it's obviously slower in terms of how much you can bet on. Obviously, you have playoffs in hockey and basketball, but there's just fewer games going on. So, this is it's an impressive number for sure. The part of this, though, is the parlay product is growing. That difference that you heard, almost $2 billion between March and April, most of that is coming from parlays and how Kalshi is scaling that parlay product and how much people are able to, get down on parlays. Again, that's it's a little inflated because, if you or I goes on Kalshi and trades $1 to win $99, that's getting captured as $100 of trading volume. But still, this points to the idea that this is growing and that the sportsbook product, which, it's growing because of same game parlays. That's what we've seen over the life cycle of sports betting here in the United States. And now we're seeing that really take off in prediction markets. So it's fascinating to see, and we'll see how much bigger it gets here, again, in football season when parlays are, again, the big thing. And, baseball right now too. Like it's a popular way to bet on baseball.
Yeah. Now, I did see a social media post from Kalshi today regarding the hantavirus. It's funny that I saw that, and now we're talking about it here on this show. Now, for those unfamiliar, Dustin, this virus, I guess, came to fruition on a cruise of some kind. And naturally, since the pandemic, everyone is always looking for that next pandemic. I don't know that this is even a natural thought to have as a human being, but we're all very well aware of it. I'm guessing had the pandemic not happened, this would probably be much ado about nothing. But naturally, in the prediction market space, this is something that you can attack if you like.
Yeah, we want to talk about disease. That's what we're here for, right? Right, Craig? Anyway, it is fascinating. It's both a good and bad part of prediction markets. Like, we're betting on whether there's going to be a pandemic or trading on it. That's not great. But at the same time, we're getting data about what a market thinks about there being a public health emergency. Will the World Health Organization declare an emergency before the end of the year? That's actually pretty interesting data. We're not betting on people dying or getting hantavirus, but we're learning something about the world and what's going on. So it's I think it's one of those things there's some bad and some good with the prediction market here, but again, us being able to price whether we're going to have a pandemic. Yes, right now it's a 13% chance. Kalshi has been about $500,000 traded on that market, and I think it's interesting data.
Yeah, definitely so. All right, let's end with some NBA here. Oklahoma City on Kalshi. You can take a shot here and make a prediction as to whether or not they go unbeaten in the playoffs. And by the way, I mean, Dustin, not a crazy thought based on the way that they have played thus far.
Yeah, I mean, close one last night, but they still won. For them to go 16-0 in the playoffs, so they have to win the next two series by sweeps. About 7.8% chance of that happening.
Yeah, you would think that at some point somebody would take them down for a game, but you never know. Dustin, as always, very informative stuff. We'll talk again soon. Thanks again.
Cheers.
Welcome back to NewsWire here on SportsGrid. I'm Craig Mish. Before we get to some last licks, let's give you the latest going on in sports. We'll reset some stories here for you. First of all, in case you missed it, Monday Night Football, by the way, this year, just one game at a time. Thank goodness. It was really hard to watch 2 games a night on Monday night. All right, Chiefs and Broncos going to kick off Monday Night Football. No location yet, but it'll be the 14th of September. That will kick off the game. Denver, Kansas City. Site still to be determined. Meanwhile, the future of one of the greatest players in the history of NBA still unknown. LeBron James spoke to the media after losing last night. Could King James end up calling it quits? Let's hear from him.
Well, I think you guys asked me about it, and I've answered questions. Yeah, I don't think I've come out like, oh, retirement is coming. I mean, with my future, I don't know, obviously. I mean, obviously we're still fresh from, obviously losing, and I don't know. I mean, I don't know what the future holds for me, obviously, as it stands right now tonight. I got a lot of time. I'll sit back, like I think I said it last year after we lost, I think, to Minnesota, to go back and recalibrate with my family and talk with them and spend some time with them. And then when the time comes, I obviously, you guys know what I decide to do.
Wouldn't it be fun if LeBron ended up back with the Miami Heat for a season? Maybe it's just me. I know Chris doesn't like to hear that. Maybe it's just me. Why no? Why wouldn't he? I mean, listen, if the Heat doesn't get Giannis, well, doesn't it make some sense, like the way Pat Riley operates, to bring him back for a year? I don't know. We'll see. All right, let's hit it. Time now for some last licks. All right, let's start off, of course, with the end result of that Knicks-Phillies series. Pat's King of Steaks, of course, very popular in the Philadelphia area. And Frank Oliveri, he's the owner of Pat's in Philly, will be wearing Knicks colors. This has got to hurt. Blue and orange while making sandwiches at Dario's Pizza in West Hempstead, New York. Oliveri lost a bet with the owners of Dario's Pizza after the Knicks swept the 76ers, and his punishment is now that. I hear that you have to try Pat's when in Philadelphia. I was there, and I actually did not try Pat's, but they, I guess, catered them at the Phillies games or something like that, because I ended up having one when the Marlins were in the playoffs. I don't know. It wasn't for me. I like a good cheesesteak, but it wasn't like I had to run for it. I actually like the ice cream a lot better there, but I'm a big ice cream guy. Okay, now for those of you attending games in Minnesota, this has been a very popular thing around the National Hockey League. Last season, Kevin Bowles and his Levy restaurants, who cater for teams all across the country, they introduced a beer-filled plastic hockey stick to the Grand Casino area before the playoffs, and it is back again this year for the Minnesota Wild. But meanwhile, they're down in this series. Next game tomorrow night. This vessel, as they call it, holds 24 ounces of liquid, and it is sold at 4 different locations on the main concourse in Minnesota. Fans can fill it with their beer choice of Slap Shot Seltzer, Cherry Green Limeade, only available in the arena. They're calling it a beer twig, and it is $37.99. And if you figure that a beer is about $20 at a sports event, and this is about $15 more, and I guess you end up getting to keep the twig, so to speak. It's a hockey stick there. All right, finally, Cal Raleigh. This is not what we wanted from Cal Raleigh this season, especially after I was so mad that he didn't win the MVP last year. It feels like he is just going through the longest stretch of his career. He's 0 for 34. That's the longest hit streak by a player in Major League Baseball this season. Raleigh is minus 150 to record a hit tonight versus the Astros. How about that? I can't go through all of his outs because we'll be here forever, but he has 16 strikeouts, 10 flyouts, 7 groundouts, and a foul out for the guy who finished second in the American League MVP voting a year ago. Cal Raleigh going through it, but I'm here to tell you he'll break out. I think the longest non-hit streak for a player that I can remember was Chris Davis of the Baltimore Orioles. I think it was like 0 for 45 or 0 for 50, but you know what? Cal Raleigh is getting close to that. He's not far away. Still, I would guess he'll get a hit one of the next 2 nights. It would be my opinion there. All right, that'll do it for our show, and it's been a fun one today. Really good stuff here. Good information on the program and really good guests. We had Kyle Soppe on the show talking some NBA. Also, thanks to Peter Apple. He's got his Just Baseball show coming up about 30 minutes from now, so stay tuned. They do a great job breaking down the odds and everything happening around the game. Also, Dustin Gawker has a great Substack, and you can catch all information on prediction markets with his podcast as well. He also is featured on CNN and a lot of other media opportunities as well. Don't forget to download the SportsGrid app. For those of you who are checking us out here online or maybe on your television, you can just download this app via your phone and stream our shows 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Whenever you're watching the show, remember, I'm here every day on NewsWire, 12 p.m. to 1 p.m., covering the world of sports and sports betting. Thanks again to Tommy, and thanks again, of course, to all of our watchers and viewers. For Frank and Chris, I'm out. See you tomorrow.